The galaxy had long whispered about Earth. On star charts, its designation glowed red, category Red Deathworld. It was a planet dismissed as myth by some, exaggerated by others. But for the proud warrior species of the Orion conglomerate, it was a challenge too tempting to ignore. The proclamation was broadcast across the galactic networks. 2,000 of the galaxy's finest Deathworlders will land upon Earth's most dangerous zone, and from it, return with glory unmatched. The expedition was hailed as the trial of dominance, proof that even Earth could not match the survival of those who had risen from the harshest planets known. Crowds cheered across alien worlds, and the warriors stepped onto their ships armored in pride. They descended not upon Earth's cities, nor its oceans, but the place their archives had marked as the Black Zone, a stretch of the Amazon so wild, so unforgiving, that even satellites failed to pierce its storms. When the dropships pierced the clouds, the sky itself seemed to resist them. Lightning cracked across their hulls, winds tore at their formations, and one vessel spiraled down into the treeline before it even touched soil. 1,000 alien eyes widened. The trial had begun. The Black Zone. At first, the warriors mocked the planet. The humidity was crushing, but tolerable. The trees towered, but could be cut. Their scanners reported no titanic predators. They raised their banners in triumph and marched deeper into the rainforest. That night, the first fell. It was no monster that claimed him, no fanged beast or hulking brute. It was a swarm of insects so small, so insignificant, that the warrior had laughed at them as they bit into his flesh. By dawn, he lay pale and shaking, his blood poisoned, his strength gone. The others incinerated his body, muttering about coward's weakness. By the third night, 200 more had fallen. The real enemy. The rainforest showed no mercy. The rivers, deceptively calm, pulled whole squads beneath the surface with unseen currents. The trees, their bark covered in fungi, released spores that choked lungs and corroded armor filters. The soil itself shifted, giving way to hidden pits filled with barbed roots. Yet it was not the environment alone that broke them. It was the waiting silence. For every warrior accustomed to facing beasts and storms, there was no honor in being eaten alive by invisible parasites, or watching comrades wither under fevers. Their advanced med pods short-circuited in the humidity. Their plasma rifles jammed. Their supplies spoiled faster than they could ration. The Black Zone stripped them not of strength, but of certainty. Descent into chaos. By the second week, their banners were gone. Factions splintered. One commander declared the mission cursed and tried to lead a retreat back to the landing craft only to find their ships consumed by vines, their hulls warped by moisture and rust. In desperation, warriors turned on one another, hoarding clean water, stealing food, even killing comrades for breathable shelters. The jungle, indifferent, watched them crumble. Every night, the screams echoed. Sometimes it was the shriek of a warrior dragged into the river by something unseen. Sometimes it was the fevered wailing of those whose skin burned with rashes. Sometimes it was silence, an entire patrol vanishing without trace. 2,000 warriors had landed. After a month, barely 50 still drew breath. The final 5. When the rains finally broke and the sun glared down upon the sodden earth, only 5 remained. They stumbled together not out of loyalty, but out of shared desperation. Their armor was shattered, their weapons gone, their skin scarred by bites and burns. They were not warriors anymore, they were survivors, dragged forward by sheer instinct. They moved without aim, until the trees thinned and the sound of rushing water guided them. There, beyond the jungle's veil, they found a sight that froze them in disbelief. Humans. Not soldiers. Not armored warriors. Just men and women laughing, carrying baskets of fruit, herding animals, washing clothes in the river. Children ran barefoot through the mud, chasing each other while mothers called after them. The 5 staggered into the clearing, falling to their knees. One tried to speak but only coughed blood. Another reached out toward a child, trembling. The humans, startled at first, approached carefully. Then, with the ease of those accustomed to this land, they offered water, food, and shelter. The warriors wept. They had thought the Black Zone a killing ground no creature could endure. Yet here was humanity not surviving, but thriving. the truth revealed. When they recovered enough to speak, the five demanded answers. They told the humans of their mission, of the 2,000 Deathworlders who had landed to conquer Earth's most dangerous zone. The humans only exchanged glances. Then, one elder chuckled softly and shook his head. "You landed in the jungle?" he asked. "The deep Amazon?" The survivors nodded. The elder leaned back, smiling with a strange pride. "That's not even the worst of it. That's just where some of us live. We farm there, hunt there, raise families there. For training, our soldiers go into far harsher places, mountains, deserts, oceans. You chose the easy zone." The five stared in silence. Easy zone. They had lost 1,995 of their kind to what humans considered livable. The legend of Earth. When the five were finally rescued by their fleet months later, they returned not as victors, but as broken relics. Their empires demanded the truth. The survivors gave it. They spoke of rivers that swallowed armies, of forests that breathed poison, of insects that killed faster than blades. But more than that, they spoke of humans, beings who lived in harmony with this nightmare, who called death a home, who raised children where alien Deathworlders perished. The tale spread like wildfire. The legend became etched in galactic memory. 2,000 Deathworlders entered Earth's black zone. Only 5 returned. And yet, billions of humans endure there every single day. And so Earth remained unchallenged, not because of its storms, or its predators, or its unforgiving terrain, but because of the truth revealed. On a planet where Deathworlders perished, humanity thrived. The galaxy had many myths, but none so persistent as Earth. To most, it was a backwater planet orbiting a yellow star, home to a primitive species barely worthy of notice. Yet to scholars and soldiers, Earth's reputation burned with a single mark: Deathworld. Its atmosphere was considered corrosive, its predators relentless, its biomes violent. No one in living memory had ever walked its lands and returned. Which is why, when the coalition of 9 empires announced the grand proving ritual, all eyes turned to Earth. It would be the ultimate test. 2,000 warriors, champions chosen from across the galaxy, would descend into Earth's most infamous wasteland and endure. To survive was to etch one's name into eternal legend. Crowds across the stars roared their approval. Armadas gathered to watch. Every empire staked its honor on the strength of its warriors. And so, the fleet descended. The chosen zone. Their target was a place no human dared linger for long. The Chernobyl exclusion zone, stretching across the ancient ruins of reactors and forested wilderness. Radiation lingered in the soil, strange creatures prowled the ruins, and ice storms raked the land from Siberia to the north. The aliens considered this poetic. Humans had once been foolish enough to poison themselves here, and now the galaxy's finest would conquer it. The dropships entered orbit and fell like meteors, piercing clouds heavy with ash and snow. When they touched ground, the warriors emerged in gleaming armor, their banners snapping in the cold wind. The trial of legends had begun. The first week. At first, the warriors treated it like a battlefield. They fortified ruined buildings into strongholds, hunted the forests for meat, and drank cautiously from streams after purifying them. The radiation was bothersome, but their advanced shielding kept it at bay. Their morale was high. They laughed at the thought of humans who once feared this place. Then the first storm came. Winds screamed through the ruins, tearing tents from the earth. Snow and ice buried supply caches. Armor systems failed under the cold, and warriors froze in their sleep despite heat generators. By dawn, 50 lay dead, their corpses preserved in ice like shattered statues. The next day, another 50 succumbed, not to beasts or storms, but to each other. Supplies had been destroyed, food was scarce, and fear had crept into their ranks. The cracks widened. Radiation was merciless. Filters clogged with ash, suits corroded by unseen particles, flesh began to blister beneath armor. Medical equipment overloaded. Warriors coughed blood and tried to hide their sickness, fearing weakness would mark them as prey. But worse than radiation was isolation. The zone warped minds. Shadows moved in ruined halls where no life stirred. Howls echoed in forests where no beast appeared. Warriors began to distrust one another, accusing comrades of sabotage, betrayal, or cowardice. The trial was no longer about surviving Earth. It was about surviving each other. Factions broke away. Rival commanders carved territories from the ruins. Battles erupted over clean wells and caches of food. The zone, once silent, now burned with the fire of alien war. Yet Earth watched, indifferent. The second month. The 2,000 who had landed with pride dwindled to hundreds. Some were claimed by invisible predators, wolves that struck and vanished into the trees, packs of wild dogs that hunted in silence, swarms of mutated insects. Others wandered into zones where the radiation was strongest, their screams echoing until their armor cracked apart. The land itself was cruel. Forests grew thick over the ruins, concealing pits and collapsing structures. Winter deepened, freezing rivers until they cracked beneath marching boots, swallowing whole squads into icy waters. But humanity had once lived here, and traces of them remained. Warriors discovered abandoned villages, broken signs, and statues of men in heavy suits. They realized, with a chill, that this wasteland had once been called home. And if humans had lived here, what did that say about the rest of the planet? The final survivors. By the third month, only a few dozen warriors remained. They were scarred, emaciated, and half-mad. They had eaten strange roots, fought off starving wolves, and drunk from radioactive rivers when thirst drove them to madness. In the end, only 5 endured. Not because they were the strongest, but because they had abandoned pride. They scavenged scraps of ruined human gear, built shelters the way humans had, and stopped fighting each other. They survived because, unknowingly, they began to act more like humans. The discovery. One bitter dawn, when snow crusted their ragged armor and their breath came in shallow gasps, the 5 survivors stumbled into a clearing. There, at the edge of the forest, stood humans. Not myth. Not legend. Just men and women in heavy suits, carrying instruments, repairing equipment around a crumbling reactor. They worked casually, laughing, handing tools back and forth, as though the land that had slaughtered nearly 2,000 alien warriors was nothing more than a workplace. The 5 stared, trembling. One human noticed them, raised a hand, and called out in a language the survivors could not understand. But his tone was calm, even friendly. Others approached, offering water, food, even blankets. The aliens broke. They fell to their knees, their pride shattering. This wasteland had nearly annihilated them. Yet humans lived here as workers. Not soldiers. Not warriors. Just workers. The return. When the survivors were finally extracted months later, they returned to their empires in silence. No songs were sung. No banners were raised. The coalition demanded answers. How many survived? What horrors did you face? The 5 survivors answered with haunted eyes. 2,000 entered. 5 endured. The wasteland killed us all. Yet humans live there still, not struggling, not fighting. Simply living. The news rippled across the stars like a plague of fear. If Earth's poisoned wastelands could destroy the galaxy's finest, yet remain habitable for humans, then what did that make humanity? The legend. Thus the trial of legends ended not in triumph, but in silence. The galaxy remembered. Not the names of the fallen, not the empires that had wagered pride, but the truth revealed. On Earth, what killed Deathworlders was everyday life for humanity. And so the whispers grew into warnings. Do not test Earth. Do not test humans. They thrive where others perish. They are not survivors by chance, they are survivors by nature. The galaxy had catalogued millions of planets, each tagged with danger ratings. Yet Earth stood apart. Marked Zone Omega, it was listed not simply as a death world but as a world to avoid at all costs. For centuries, explorers who dared approach vanished without trace. The archives spoke of unstable skies, oceans that boiled with storms, forests that bled poison, and volcanoes that remade the land in fire. To the empires of the stars, Earth was less a planet and more a warning. And to warriors, a temptation. 2,000 Deathworld champions answered the call. They came not as allies but as rivals, clans from burning desert worlds, beasts from high-gravity planets, predators from frozen wastelands. Together, they declared their intent. We will tame Earth's Zone Omega. We will claim its ground, and our names will live forever. The galaxy roared with anticipation. The warriors descended in a fleet of fire, landing upon a chain of volcanic islands cloaked in storm. The reckoning had begun. The first days. The warriors arrived in power. Their weapons burned through thick vegetation, cutting paths across swamps. Their shields glimmered against acid rain. They raised spires of metal where the ground would allow, transforming alien soil into forward bases. At first, they mocked the legends. The air was heavy, but they endured. The ground shook, but they stood firm. Predators lunged from the swamps, and they cut them down with ease. Is this the feared Zone Omega? One commander laughed. A world for cowards to fear? The laughter didn't last. Nature strikes back. The first storm came with no warning. Clouds boiled black, lightning shattered spires, and winds howled with the fury of an ocean unleashed. Dropships were torn from their moorings and hurled into the sea. Entire squads vanished as tidal waves consumed the shoreline. When dawn returned, 300 warriors were gone, taken not by beasts, but by the sky. And the ground betrayed them too. Volcanic tremors split their bases apart, opening rivers of molten fire that swallowed everything in their path. Toxic fumes seeped through cracks, burning lungs and corroding armor. Zone Omega was alive, and it was patient. The long weeks. For every weapon, nature had an answer. Their flamethrowers scorched the swamps, but the fires only summoned storms heavier than before. Their fortifications crumbled beneath endless tremors. Their plasma rifles jammed as spores grew inside the cooling vents. Predators adapted. Massive reptilian hunters learned to wait until lightning blinded the warriors before striking. Venomous insects nested in abandoned armor. Even plants turned hostile, vines creeping into shelters, thorns piercing through steel, blossoms releasing clouds that sent entire patrols into delirium before consuming them. The warriors fought bravely, but Earth required no bravery. It required endurance. And one by one, the Deathworlders fell. The breaking point. By the end of the first month, half were gone. Factions formed. Some demanded retreat, but the storm-drowned ships made escape impossible. Others claimed the only path forward was conquest, as though the planet itself could be beaten into submission. They fought not only Earth, but each other. Camps raided camps. Warriors killed over scraps of clean water. Pride, once their strength, now devoured them from within. And still, Earth waited. The second eruption came without warning. A mountain exploded in fire, blotting out the sky with ash. Rivers of molten stone carved through camps, erasing weeks of work in moments. Those who survived choked on ash and stumbled blind into the swamps, where predators waited. The proud 2,000 had become less than 100. The last 5 weeks stretched into months. The storms slowed, the eruptions faded, and silence fell across Zone Omega. When at last the skies cleared, only 5 survivors remained. They were unrecognizable as warriors. Their armor was shattered, their weapons long abandoned. Their skin was scarred from burns, their eyes hollow from starvation. They did not march with pride. They crawled with desperation, drawn onward by the faint sight of firelight beyond the swamp. Through muck and smoke, they stumbled into a clearing and froze. There, standing amidst the volcanic wilds, were humans. The revelation. The survivors stared in disbelief. Humans moved among the rocks with ease. They carried tools, not weapons. They set up tents against the ashfall. Some laughed around a fire. Children played at the edge of the swamp, their shouts echoing into the night. The Deathworlders fell to their knees. One tried to speak but coughed ash instead. Another reached forward, trembling, as though begging for mercy. The humans turned, surprised but not afraid. They approached calmly, offering water, food, blankets. One soldier, clad in nothing more than a mask and vest, helped lift a warrior to his feet. The aliens could not understand. This land had broken them, slaughtered them, erased nearly all of them. And yet here were humans living, laughing, raising children in the very place they had named Zone Omega. Through a translator, one survivor croaked. "How do you endure this hell?" The human soldier tilted his head, puzzled. Then he shrugged. "This," he said. "This is just a training zone. Good for survival exercises. Harsh, yes, but nowhere near the worst Earth has to offer." The survivors wept. The return. Months later, the 5 were extracted by what remained of their fleet. They returned to the stars as shadows of themselves, broken, humbled, ashamed. When the empires demanded their report, they spoke the truth. 2,000 entered Zone Omega. 5 endured. We faced storms, fire, poison, beasts, and betrayal. Yet humanity lives there with ease. They raise children where we buried armies. And they call it training. The word spread across the galaxy, carried on whispers of fear. No empire spoke of conquering Earth again. The thought itself became madness. The legend of reckoning. The galaxy remembered not the names of the fallen warriors, nor the empires who had sent them. It remembered the truth. Earth was not a death world to humanity. It was home. And if humans thrived in their reckoning zones, what power must they wield in the rest of their world? Thus the legend was carved into the stars. 2,000 Deathworlders challenged Earth's Zone Omega. Only 5 endured. And yet billions of humans live there still. And with that, the galaxy trembled, for the true danger of Earth was not its storms, its predators, or its fire. It was the humans who thrived within them.